Jalen Marshall, and you're watching NYJFTV.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of NYJFTV. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin Sirkin, and I'm fired up to be here tonight with Fireman Ed, Rob Carpenter, especially coming off a Jets win. I think it was good that we all had a week to kind of cool off after that Bengals game. I know I was pretty pissed off about what I saw out there. I probably would have wrecked this entire set if we were here last week, but again, we had a chance to put that away really quickly. A short week in Buffalo, got a nice bounce-back win right there, divisional win on the road, so you take those any way you can get them. So, Ed, what are your thoughts first 2 games of the season?
Well, it's a whirlwind, when you play 2 games in 5 days. We love football, but it was like, I couldn't get my thoughts together after a while. I was like, what the hell's going on? There's a lot of, I see a lot of good. I mean, more than anything else, I see a lot of positives in that team. Love the play of the offensive line in general, overall, in the 2 games. Really like what I'm seeing there, which is, in the long run, is going to really could be the difference in us actually making a move this year. So, I'm excited about the offensive line. The defense, I'm still waiting for them to make a big stand when it counts. They didn't do it against Cincinnati when we needed them to. When we took the lead, they went right down the field and retook the lead. So I'm concerned with, how good is defense are they going to be? We were talking about before the season started being an elite defense. We're only 2 games in, so I'm not going to get too crazy over it. But I would truly like to see them make a stand when we actually take a lead, because we've seen the same thing last year.
It's like we've been seeing the same thing every year.
Same thing last year.
It's been a while.
It's
been a while.
I want to see that's a negative, but overall, I like where we're at. Would have liked to have been 2-0, but I'll take the 1-1.
Rob?
Well, for me, the biggest thing I take from the first 2 games is that there's signs here that this is a really good team. Ed and I were talking off camera that when you have 2 games in 5 days, and within the Cincinnati game, it just kept coming back. Everyone knows Cincinnati's a really good team. They're not a slouch of a team at all. We talked a few weeks ago about how Cincinnati was basically, their quarterback away from making it to the Super Bowl. So, if he didn't get hurt, and it's basically the same team that they have back. And when you can play within the game and make the mistakes that they made in against Cincinnati, you have a missed extra point, missed field goal. 3 times in the red zone, you only come out with 1 touchdown. When things like that happen within a game, some teams will go into the tank. You look at the 4th quarter, the Jets still had a chance to win the game. You still have a chance with
the lead with 3 minutes.
Left. But Cincinnati scores, and you still have a chance to go down and actually win the game. So, and then you carry that over, a few days later to go up to Buffalo and pull out a victory there. Even with what happened to start the second half, you have a 20-3 lead, and it evaporates, in 2 minutes with a touchdown and then a fumble recovery for a touchdown. The lead is gone. The team turns right back around, goes right back down the field, takes the lead back, and keeps it that way. That's a sign of a good team, where adversity within the game can make a lot of teams go in the tank, and they didn't do that. They just kept fighting. Unfortunately, against Cincinnati, it didn't work out that way, but Buffalo, up in a hostile environment, you pull out a victory, you have those first 2 games, within 5 days of each other to start the season. Hopefully that Buffalo victory, carries on, for the rest of the season. And I think what the coaches were looking at for those first 2 games were, we need to pull out a victory, especially after Cincinnati. They we need to pull out all the stops to get a victory, play this game right, and it was adversity all throughout the Buffalo game. So, like I was saying, Ed, it's a sign of a good team when a team can actually continue to fight, even though the defense is not really playing up to the level that all of us thought the defense would actually be playing up to. Even though first game you had 7 sacks against Cincinnati, but you go into Buffalo, the defense was playing a little bit different type of defense in Buffalo. They basically wanted to make Tyra out a passer. Can't just go balls out and just fly all over the place at him, because he can make plays with his legs. So and we saw that happened in that game a couple of times. So for the rest of the season, I think especially this little stretch that we got right here, Kansas City, Seattle, these games coming up, there's a real good chance that the Jets are a good team, so teams know that the Jets are a good team. It's going to be a battle for 4 quarters with them. But, eliminate a couple of mistakes.
I'm about as optimistic as any Jet fan, but I'm definitely concerned about some of the things that I've seen. We were talking before about the secondary. Is it more Todd Bowles just not making the adjustments or the in-game adjustments, or is it just a miscommunication with the safeties? They're not there to help. What's going on with the secondary right now?
Miscommunication going on. I can see it, at the Cincinnati game. I'm in the stands. I could see it, certain things that were going on. To certain people, you won't see the route adjustments that teams make, and it's been talked about. The long pass that A.J. Green caught, everybody points at Darrell. That wasn't him. Gilchrist came out of the middle. You're playing a high safety in the middle. That's your responsibility. You can't chase an underneath route, even though it looks like it's wide open. You can't do that. You have to leave that and that's an adjustment that can be made on the fly after the fact. But it was a big play. But everybody points at Darrell for that. Now, granted, Darrell did give up some other plays in the game. He gave up the one big play against Buffalo to start the game. But there was also some other things that happened in that game where coverages were broken. But those are things that you can teach once the game is over. Coaches get into the film sessions and they teach them. It's a teaching lesson.
And I think something else that concerned me even more about the Cincinnati game is that we had 7 sacks, and we were getting there without the blitz. We were getting there with a 4-man rush, and we still couldn't stop anything that the Bengals were doing.
Well, you know what? First off, Brandon Marshall, if he catches that pass on the 50-yard line, okay, we're 2-0. That's, let's not forget that.
It's funny
he should have made that catch.
It's funny how one play can make a whole topic of conversation change.
And that would have done, for that drive in particular, that was the last drive, that was prime. Anyway, but there's something, and I don't know how you feel about this, Rob, but, I think Todd he's got a lot of confidence in Darrell. And at the end of that game, I think he thought that Darrell would be able to make a couple of plays there and not give that cushion as much as he did, like that 11-yard pass that was the difference in that, giving the kid at Nugent a chance rather than a 58-yarder to a 47-yarder. I just think he's got a lot more confidence in him, and, he's trying to give him that, I think he earned it, through the years, and I think,
When you actually, Darrell has earned the right to actually, get the coverage that he wants to play. And, the coaches, I'm pretty sure that you poll all 32 head coaches in the league, they're going to say, I trust him. He's earned that right to get that trust. And, it just so happens that it didn't work out. He gave up some of the plays, and it lessened the cushion on the field goal. Same thing with the long pass against Buffalo. It just looked like he was shocked, but as someone said, he didn't really realize that this guy was actually an Olympic sprinter. But as he said, I know now, and they tried it again, and he was in place to make a play. He almost got an interception. But as I think as the season goes on, you'll see not only his confidence rise, because Darrell obviously has full confidence in himself. The coaches have the confidence in all of the guys out there to make the plays as well. So, you can't be scared as coaches to go out and make a call and hope that your guys actually, have the confidence that your guys actually go make a play. You have to make those calls and say, go make a play.
I just think when it all comes down to it, he's going to have Darrell's. I just don't see Darrell losing it in that regard that quick, that fast. I think when it's all said and done, you're going to see him come back and have. Darrell's still a play, and I think Todd Bowles feels that way. So we'll see. Time will tell. So.
No, listen, if I have to put my money on it, I'm putting my money on him. He's a guy who's done it his entire career, so he has my respect. I love everything about what he's been able to do in his career with the Jets. So
what Brandon Marshall said on NFL Network after the game, after the Buffalo game, he made it very clear. He says, "Listen, this guy wasn't training as hard, and he was held back a little bit. That he knows. There's a guy that knows he's dealing with him, right? I mean, they battled in camp, and he said he'll be back. So I like to believe our guys. I mean, these are your superstars on the team. If you can't believe in that and think that he can come back, then I don't know what you're going to believe in then.
I like to believe that this is just a slow start, and this defense is going to figure it out. But
5 days, 2 games, 5 days.
I feel you, but this is also year 2 of the system. We kind of expected them to come out and want to show right away that they're going to be that number 1 defense that we were expecting, especially with the first 6 games that we have. I wanted to see this defense come out right away and really show something. So I've been really disappointed with them.
I actually think, just my personal opinion, when you have games like that, watch the defensive line. The big boys, they don't get that adequate rest during the week when you have a game on Sunday and you have that Thursday night game. The big boys don't get that rest like they normally would have, and I think that just takes a toll. When you're chasing the quarterback around, for 4 quarters, it'll take a toll on you. So I think it looked that way on both sides of the ball. The Jets were manhandling the Bills, D-line. So, you can watch that throughout the rest of the season for the rest of the Thursday night games. When the teams play on Sunday, they didn't have to play Thursday. Watch the D-line. That's the one thing that I look at, and I just think it just takes a toll on the big guys on D.
And the last thing on D, the last guy that I want to talk about, Darren Lee, man, leading the team in tackles already. Aaron Henderson's a little banged up. He might not be able to play this week, so Lee's definitely been stepping up. Plus, we should be getting Jordan Jenkins back. He's been practicing this week, which should be a big boost to the linebacking core. So I want to see what these kids are going to do this week because they got a big test coming up with Kansas City.
It's one of the things we talked about, during the preseason, and it was the speed that these guys actually bring into. Yeah, exactly. And Lee's been showing it. He's made plays all over the place. And
young blood, man, he moves.
He does. And
that boy, there's no doubt he's got some speed.
He's one of the guys that, when you see him read a play and he goes and attacks a play just that fast, you're just like, is it instincts? Is it the speed? And he has it all. So, that's the one thing that makes it really exciting about him for now and the future. And I think that's what Todd Bowles and Mike McCagnon saw. They're like, this guy can make plays. Regardless, he's not a huge linebacker. He's not that prototypical big guy, but, he's
I don't
around.
even
He
think
makes
you have
plays.
to be in today's NFL.
No, you don't, because it's a speed game now, and he fits that mold. And like you just said, Jenkins is back.
I'm
so
excited
we're
to
kind of
see
excited to see.
Well, how's he gonna?
And I know
how he gonna fit in there?
I know he's biting down on his mouthpiece, ready to go.
They were very excited about him more than they were Lee. I mean,
because
talking
Jenkins was
to
already
Calvin Pryor.
Jenkins was already in the lineup before it was Lee, because Lee was behind Henderson. But Lee jumps in and steps in and he starts making the plays. But when Jenkins gets in there, it's going to be.
That's what's
hopefully
exciting.
These guys just wreak havoc all over the place.
I'm hoping. Calvin Pryor said, in the preseason, I got to talk to him, and first guy he mentioned was, he says, man, he goes, kid Jenkins is a beast. So, I mean, it'll be exciting if that's the case. And now you have the 2 kids, and we got all reliable, the hit man.
Yeah, exactly.
The hit man. So, yeah, it'd be nice.
And hopefully he got to rest that shoulder.
Yeah.
For
10 days, huge.
These extra days, so that's big.
So shifting over to the offensive side of the ball, what is this offense? Because I watched that Bengal game, and when you watch Fitz, I got very frustrated watching him, just some of the throws that he was making, and he was just behind receivers a lot. He had that interception at the end, which was huge, but like you said, that wouldn't have happened if Marshall could have hung onto that ball. So a big drop by him, which kind of put Fitz in the hole. But it just seems like when he doesn't have that clean pocket and he's not able to step into his throws, he can't really get the ball downfield. And in the first game, they just didn't even call anything downfield. They had 5 plays that I think they threw the ball more than 15 yards. And then in week 2, they set records, I think, for most passes over 20 yards in that game.
I think I think in the first game, Fitz just didn't take the shots. There were some shots he could have taken downfield. He just didn't take them. But you're not really going to see that when you're watching a game, from a different perspective.
Yeah, it felt like we were watching the old Paul Hackett offense. We were just dumping the ball off.
Dumping everything down underneath.
Yeah.
But and you just alluded to it when you see it in against Buffalo, everything was downfield. But I think what happened was everybody just said, from game 1 to game 2, look, we can take these shots down the field. We have to. We have to take the pressure off of the O-line and the running backs underneath. Everything underneath, every defense is going to just crowd up towards the line.
Yeah, they got 8 men in the box.
If you don't take a shot down the field, you have to loosen up the defense. And
Constantly.
taking those shots, the Jets have 3 big guys that can get down the field quickly and take advantage. They need to take advantage of it. They did with Quincy, Decker and Brandon. We got the scare of a lifetime with Brandon hurting his knee, but he's a trooper, man, and he came back and showed that he's a beast.
He's a beast.
To come back and finish that game. Hopefully, even though he didn't practice his first couple of days this week, hopefully, he's fine and can play against Kansas City, because that's big. When you have 3 guys, as I was telling Ed off camera, when you have 3 guys that can get down the field, that opens up the whole field.
The whole
and
field.
You saw what happened. Forte had 30 carries, 100 yards, 3 TDs, and then
Speaking
it
of that.
happens. It happens. The defense has to, protect themselves from getting throws behind the linebackers. So when you have guys that can get behind the linebackers like Quincy can, if Decker moves over to the slot, he can do the same thing. Brandon takes care of the outside. Jalen Marshall is coming into his own, getting the ball down the field. So you have that type of offense. The running backs have lanes that they can run.
A lot
to,
more.
And the Jets,
A lot more lanes.
And you saw it happen.
Yeah. Forte had lanes in all different parts of the field, but you know what? With Matt Forte, which is, that's a blessing right there. Anybody that said he missed a step, he hasn't missed anything. That guy is he's a polished pro. That's a polished pro. He does everything. He does all 3 facets of the game. He picks up blitzes. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He runs behind his blockers. The guy's outstanding. With that being said, can we ease up on him? 30 carries, 24 carries, 54 carries in 2 games in 5 days? Ease up. Todd. Chan. Relax. Bilal Powell, did you forget him? He had 5 carries. He's got 5 carries in 2 games. I don't get that. This week, a little more Bilal Powell. Louisville. Let's go.
Is there anything that comes to mind about why we've seen so little of Bilal Powell when he made such an impact last year when he was healthy and involved with the offense?
It's Forte. You have a guy like that, and I kind of, said this during the preseason. Matt Forte is that kind of guy where he can carry the load.
Though.
It is,
yeah.
And I do think they kind of overdid it, but you have 2 games in 5 days. He has 54 carries, but I think they looked past that and were like, well, we do get 10 days before the next game. So
well, we'll see this week.
But yeah, hopefully they
25 carries this week.
Take that load off of him. But the one thing about Matt is, even though he gets those carries, you don't see him take big hits. The guy's actually really, really, really smooth within the holes.
So graceful.
He sees a hole, he hits it. He slides through the hole. He glides through the holes. He doesn't take big hits. So that's the one good thing about him. He knows when he needs to get down, he gets down. But he can avoid most of those big hits.
He runs
within,
like Curtis.
Within the hole, and he's right on his blockers behind, and when he sees a hole, he hits it. He still has enough speed, enough quickness to get through holes when they're there, and just avoid those big hits. So that's a good thing about him. But yes, we do need to calm down on so many carries. Bilal does need to actually spell him a bit. Not saying that it needs to be 50-50, but
Well, how about a little?
60-40
how about like
60-40 split would be
18,
all right.
20 carries, and even Bilal Powell 12 to 15.
That's what I mean. A 60-40 split will
come
work
on.
just fine.
What do you call it? Don't you think he runs a little like Curtis Martin? Because Curtis didn't take a lot of. He tried to avoid taking those big hits. He was good at that.
Curtis also
Very
could
graceful.
lay out some punishment.
But
when
he could,
actually,
yeah.
when he needed to. You don't really see Matt do that. Matt will, he just learned. Not to say that he learned, but that's just his running style. He just avoids all the big hits. When he needs to step out of bounds, he just steps out of bounds.
And even watching him in the red zone too. You watch him in the red zone. He's patient. He waits for his
Exactly. He waits
blockers.
for his
He
blockers.
does,
He sees
man.
the hole,
He's
he
a
hits
pro,
it.
man.
He is. He's exciting. Keep him healthy. So we'll see. And I still think they're going to sign Carlos Williams. I believe they're signing Carlos Williams. I think that's a done deal. I say after this week, they're signing him.
Because after this week, he'll be able to get back in practice.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and they lost Kyrie Robinson kind of unexpectedly.
That would be a nice.
That
How
would be a
about
nice
that?
pickup.
How about
And that could be why we haven't seen as much
Right?
Bilal Powell.
Little beast mode joining the fray. Right? Little beast mode joining the fray.
It'd be nice if they could add that power back. Absolutely.
I'm hoping.
Especially behind this offensive line with how they've been playing
I'm
so
hoping.
far. I know you've been talking about Winters all offseason. He's been stepping up. We got Wesley Johnson coming in there for Carpenter, which was nice to
that
see.
was nice.
I mean, it looks like we actually have some depth on the offensive line right now.
Yeah, isn't it? It's amazing how all of a sudden it's and listen. Let's hope so. But hey, listen, Brian Winters and Mangold. How about that? I think it was the first rushing touchdown for Matt Forte. The two of them, I played it back the next day. They blew them off the ball. They were 3 yards into the end zone. I mean, Forte literally was getting tackled from behind, from the outside, because the middle was just. It was great. That's tremendous.
The last touchdown looks like their entire defensive line.
Love
just
Brian
parted.
Winters. One of my favorites. Nasty.
Offensive line depth looks good now, and that was one of the worries about
That's exciting,
going
isn't
into,
it?
going into the season. It
Between
is.
having an offensive line and a defensive line, but I am worried. I gotta say this. I don't know what it is, but Sheldon Richardson, when he comes in there, and I hope I'm wrong, when he comes in there, the defensive line doesn't seem like they play the same way. I don't know if he's out of control and he's not doing what he's supposed to do, if he's not fighting with incognito, or, I don't understand. Todd, get control of this guy. Really. I don't get it. It seems like there wasn't cohesiveness like it was the first week. And I know he's a beast. I know he is. But let's see. I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Do you think it was more just the fact that they were facing Tyrod Taylor and
I'm hoping
they
I'm
wanted
wrong,
to keep
but
him?
I don't know. It scares me. I don't see the same defensive line when this guy's in there. It seems like he's freelances.
I think he was more excited just the fact that he was back. Yeah. And it was.
They said that he was getting. Did you hear that? I don't know where I heard that they were saying stuff to him before the game.
Buffalo?
Yeah, they were but they said some derogatory stuff and got under his skin. It's easy to get under his skin.
It looked like when the game started,
He was already.
he was already agitated to
the
the
first
point where he
play.
was he was like, all right, he was way up here. And he
you
needed
could see
to
that
break
personal
down.
foul
It was
coming
the
from a
first
mile
series.
away. You knew it was only a
the
matter
first
of time.
series of the game. It was either first or second play. He was already fighting.
It was the first play. It was a touchdown because he was fighting with incognito as they were going down the field. But a touchdown was already scored and he got the penalty. But it's like, all right, yeah, Sheldon, bring it down a little bit, man. Pay attention to what's going on in this game. They just scored. Don't get these penalties right now.
So last thing I want to ask you guys before we get to the Kansas City game, who has been the one guy so far that has kind of really stood out to you that you weren't expecting so much out of? And the guy that I'm going to point to is Quincy Enunwa, because we've talked about him a lot this offseason. I wasn't expecting this. He looks like a polished, I don't want to say number one, but he looks like a polished starting wide receiver right now. He's still getting after it as a blocker, still physical, but now he's got the route running, he's got the hands. He's looking like a complete wideout right now.
I'm not surprised. We talked about this in the preseason. Yeah, I said Quincy's going to be one of the main cogs in this offense. I'm not surprised about that at all. If you see the progression that he made from the second half of last season, and you saw the quick response that he made in the preseason, I'm not surprised about that at all. I will say the one guy that actually has surprised me a lot right now is Marcus Williams. I talked about him a little bit as well, and I even made the comment during the Buffalo game. At this point in time, I would trust him covering the number one at this point in time. Not to say that he's a guy that will go out every week and be able to cover the number one, but the way it was just looking for the first 2 weeks, he's been in the right place at the right time, and that actually goes along with being a pro as a defensive back. When you study other offenses and you can not necessarily make the right guess, you're just in the right place at the right time, it just shows that the facets of the game. And he's learning from Darrell. And I'm sure Darrell has actually have been on these guys and teaching these guys actually how he's studied receivers' techniques, and route combinations. Not to say that these guys don't, because coaches go over that a lot as well. But when you take it upon yourself to do that and go out and practice that, he's already leading the team in interceptions, and he was that way last year.
Yeah,
so,
6 interceptions last year as the fourth cornerback.
Yeah, and he already has two in 2 games. So a guy like that is a guy that, for me, I was looking forward to seeing if that was going to happen again, and he's going out and he's doing it again. Again, the Quincy thing, I'm not surprised at that at all, because Quincy is a guy that I was hoping was going to have a big season. Not to say that he's going to be a 100-catch guy, anything like that, but to spell Brandon, to spell Decker, he's going to be that guy that's going to be right there in the mix. And I think every week you're going to see these guys. Brandon has 8 catches, Decker has 6. Quincy's going to be right there with them 5-6 catches, in the mix with the touchdowns with those guys, in the mix with the big plays. So I think
that's so huge too, because last year, if you looked at it, if Marshall or Decker went down, you're like, we're screwed. Who are we throwing the ball to? Now, if one of those guys goes down, it's not the end of the world. We've got some depth that wide out now.
I'll tell you what, the guys that are exciting me, Matt Forte for sure, because although we've seen him in the NFL, when he's not on your team, you're not really getting every carry, everything that he actually does as a running back, and the gracefulness that we talked about, and just the overall way he plays the game. And he hasn't lost. Listen, in 2 games, he hasn't lost anything. So Chicago, what you've seen from them Monday night, and they looking at that kid on Thursday Night Football, because they're watching, the whole country's watching, and they had to be going, what did they do not sign him? So he's tremendous. But the guy that excites me the most, that's going to make our team, and I'm hoping when it's all said and done, is going to be the big dog, number 99, Steve McClendon. Man, did you see him against the Bengals? That man was all over the place. I was so excited for him, because you hear about Leo, you hear about Mo, you hear about Sheldon. We didn't know what we were getting from McClendon because we lost Snacks. This guy has, listen, that's exciting. Now that excites me, because you got the 4 of them. I want to see what happens Sunday. I'm anxious to see with this Kansas City and what happens with this front 4, because this is a game where they could dominate. They could dominate in this game.
I'm actually hoping that we do see a lot more 4-man fronts. I want those guys in the game all at the same time.
Well, he has to. It'd be ridiculous if he doesn't.
Right.
I mean, that's
and
the
we're going to
talent
see
right there.
Those guys can hold it down with the pass rush, and those guys can hold it down against the run. Just those guys alone. And that right there, with the 4-man fronts, that frees up Harris. That frees up Lee.
Think about
So
think
those
about
guys keep those guys
McClendon
free.
coming on like this. Think about that. You got 4 guys. If McClendon plays that way, you're expecting the other 3. We didn't know what we were going to expect from McClendon. Come on, let's be honest. We didn't know what to expect from McClendon. I mean, this could get. I mean, this is exciting.
You have McClendon, and you have Leo, and then you have Sheldon, and then you have Mo, and those guys with McClendon and Leo holding down the fort between the center and the 2 guards. Lee and Harris are free. They just read and react. So that's a great thing right there. And then, like you just said, Jenkins coming back, man.
That front 7 is going to be fun to
Those
watch.
running
for the
backs
next
is gonna be
5
want
to
to
10
start seeing
years.
Pryor coming out of the missile, coming out of the Louisville Slugger, coming out of nowhere. Because if everybody else is getting clogged up, guess what? He should be zoning in.
I think that's all we're waiting for right now from this defense. The safeties to show up.
The
And
safety's
a
got
little
to
bit more
show
from
up.
Revis. A little more from
Actually,
Revis.
if you have Harris and you have Lee making a lot of tackles, I'm cool with Pryor
No,
not making
you're
a lot
right.
of tackles,
You're right.
because
You're
that
right.
means that means the ball is up in front
You're
of him.
right.
If
You're
he's
right.
making a lot of tackles behind the linebackers, that's not really a good thing. But he's a guy, Calvin actually comes up into the box, so he's another guy that can bring down into the box, and the running game is shut down. So
We should be getting
it's a good thing.
picks.
It should be.
Right?
Yeah, we should.
We should start be getting picks. I mean, if it stops breaking down, the defensive scheme stops breaking down in the back 4. I mean, with that front 7, what we just talked about, there should be some.
The one thing
Major picks
that
going
you
on.
did see against Cincinnati is that Dalton didn't make the big mistake where he was just trying to let the ball go. He just took the sack. He's like, look, I'm going to just take the sack. You got hit a lot. got bumped around a lot, 7 sacks, got knocked down quite a bit, except for the one where he did let it go and Marcus did pick it off. But, for the most part, we're hoping that these quarterbacks actually just make that mistake where they're like, the pressure's there, I got to let it go. And that's when you're going to see the back four making those types of plays.
So guys, looking at Kansas City, what are you expecting to see in this game? What are some of the matchups that you're watching, and what do you want to see from the Jets if they're going to get to 2-1?
Well, hopefully the Jets can actually keep Fitz clean again. That's been a big thing. Keep him clean from Kansas City's pass rush. We have a very big chance at quite a few more big plays. Not to say that Kansas City's defensive backs aren't good, because they are good. That's a good bunch. That's a really good defense. But I think the matchups that we have, favor us in the passing game because again, Quincy's big down the middle of the field. He takes that pressure off of Brandon and Decker, and the running game is actually going to be pretty big. On the defensive side of the ball, Alex Smith is one of those guys that he's hit or miss.
Like Fitz.
Hopefully he's a miss on Sunday, and hopefully the front four that the way they played against Cincinnati keeps that pressure on him, because we all know Alex Smith is a guy that will eat the ball. He'll eat it. He'll like, I'll take the sack. That could work great in the Jets' favor. We just have to keep Kelsey and Macklin away from the big plays, because Kelsey's going to be big. I think he's the guy that is going to be the X factor for them, because I think we can contain their running game for the most part with Ware and West, because if I'm not mistaken, Charles is not playing again, so Kelsey's going to be big. If we keep him away from the big plays, if Pryor and Gilly can contain him, I think that's going to be big. But his matchup with the linebackers and the safeties is going to be big. That's one of the big things I'm going to watch.
Ed?
Well, we had a lot of problems last year with the running backs coming out of the backfield on the wheel routes and the tight ends. So therefore, now we're going to find out if we corrected that with these young linebackers, because I do believe that a lot of the game plan for Kansas City is going to be just that. I think Kelsey's a big part of that team. The kid Ware is making plays for them. They got the fast kid Hill. Macklin's, their best receiver. But they don't have a lot of weapons. What I would be concerned about is their special teams, because Kansas City is known for special teams. They always have been, and that kid Hill is tearing it up. So the special teams are going to be huge this week, because field position is Kansas City plays field position. Andy Reid is a guy that plays field position on a consistent basis. They have Colquitt, the punter. So they're going to be playing that type. What I'm hearing is it's going to rain. It's supposed to be sloppy conditions. So turning the ball over. You can't turn the ball over on the road. You can't turn the ball over, period. But turning the ball over on the road it's just a disaster. So that's what I would look for in as far as that. Our offensive team, I think that you give Fitz time, I think he's going to carve them up. I just do. They're lacking. Houston's not there. Their best pass rusher. Tom Bahali is banged up. They got a couple of linebackers that are pretty good. But I think this is a very winnable game. So,
final predictions. Go.
I think we're going to win this game, and I think Falk is going to actually come through. I think Falk's going to win the game for us Sunday. I say we're going to win the game. I say we're going to win the game 20-17.
Rob?
I got us winning. And I think, as Ed just said, the good conditions might play a part in the game and slow the game down a little bit. But I do think we come out with a couple of big plays in this game that'll help us out. And I think the Jets take a victory 24-20.
You guys are going to make me the villain on the set. I'm going to be the one guy that goes against the Jets. I never do this. I'm normally very optimistic. As I said, I normally don't pick against them, but going into this atmosphere at Arrowhead, I don't have a good feeling about it. I like the score that you said, 20-17. I just think it's going to go the other way. I think this defense, it's going to start to show a little bit of something, but I don't think it's there yet. I think we're still a few weeks away from seeing the Jets get to where they can be, when they get to their peak. So
I say the Jets defense turns the ball over and they score this week. That's going to be the difference.
I'm looking forward to
I think they're going to
couple
turn. They're
of,
due for a turnover and bringing it
big
back.
defensive turnovers this week because I think the rest helped them. They got a chance to get a head start on the Kansas City game plan. So that's why I look forward to a couple of big plays.
I hope
on
you
the
guys are
offensive side of
right.
the ball.
Hope you guys are
And
right.
Same
So,
thing on the defense.
hey, guys, awesome job tonight. On behalf of myself, Ed, Rob, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're following us on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, at NYJFTV, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Do Hooters girls make your beer stay colder and your wings taste better? Do they make the greatest month of football ever even greater? Yes. Yes, they do.
Hey, what's up, Jet fans? I'm here with the lovely Carrie Nautique, who's going to help us green out Hooters and Hackensack on Sunday at 4 o'clock for the Jets and Chiefs. But right now, she's going to share some of her football knowledge with us and give us her picks of the week.
And you know what? If you're a gambling man, I would take these if I were you. I'm pretty good at picking who's going to win. Obviously, Jets versus Chiefs, I'm going to go with the Jets, clearly. Okay? I think the Jets are looking like a really strong team this year. I'm really excited about the last game that we had, and I think we got some strong defense. This is going to be a good game. On top of that, we've got Giants-Redskins. I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy about this, but I'm going to go with the Giants for a win.
3-0.
Yeah, I'm going
All
to go
right.
with it.
All
I
right.
think that Ben McAdoo's been doing a really good job. I think that he's a conservative coach, and I think that he's going to be able to pull them through for 3-0 this year. Bills-Cardinals, bye-bye Bills. I think the Cardinals are going to pull through for this one. When it comes down to Bucks and Rams, Jameis Winston has been pulling a really strong game. I think the Bucks are going to win it. And then I got to go with my home team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sorry, Jags. You only pull out about 2 hat tricks a year, so I'm going to say it's going to be the Ravens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.